Another one of those featured co-instructors is Frank B. Kermit, who happens to be our guest for this action-packed episode. Enjoy.
You're listening to the world-famous Chick Whisperer podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
You are listening to the world-famous Chick Whisperer podcast. My name is Scott McKay. The topic of the show is relationships with women, how to have complete control over your dating life, how to identify different kinds of relationships, and how to know what kind of relationship you want to be in at any given moment. And I have Frank B. Kermit on the line. What's up, man?
Not much. I'm really happy to be here.
Great. All the way from sunny Toronto.
Not so sunny these days. We're in a nasty cold snap, heavy winters, but still surviving.
Yeah. Well, Frank's well known to those of you guys who are master seducers, and Frank and I have worked together. Frank's Virtuosity program is absolutely epic, and we're going to be talking more about that in a few minutes. But first, Frank, what do you say we get to today's voicemail?
I'm ready for it. Let's hear it.
Here we go.
This is John McLean from North Carolina. I was listening to the Chick Whisperer, and I just had a question. My question is, I live in kind of a small town, North Carolina. It really doesn't have many people. I mean, I live near kind of a big town, Asheville, North Carolina, but Asheville's not that big. So my question is, there's not a whole lot of hotties around this area, but there are within like 100 to 200 miles of my area. So my question is, where should I go to pick up women since I can't pick them up, close to home? And also, how do I get a social group? Because I'm trying to get a group of guys to hang out, and to go sarging. And I can't get a group of guys because there's not many people out here. So if you could answer my question, I'd really appreciate it. And thank you. And I love you guys' podcast. You guys rock. Bye.
All right, John, man, all the way from western North Carolina, kind of out in the boondocks there he is. I think Asheville is about 100, 200,000 people out there, still not a very big city. Frank, what would you tell this guy, man?
Well, I think there are three main questions that John had.
Yeah,
First
sure.
question was, where does he meet women since he doesn't live in an area that has a lot of hot women? Mm-hmm. My first response to that, date who you can in that area to start. The fact is, relationship experience is all about him learning about himself. And if he's holding out for the hottest women when he might have some average-looking women that he could date in his immediate area and he's not choosing to date them, I think there's a problem there. That's a sign that he's looking at the creative ways to avoid his own development. If he's really into women and there's a decent-looking girl in his area that he doesn't want to date and there's no one else, well, that's a reflection on him, not on the women in his area.
Yeah, it's kind of like all about sharpening the saw so that when push comes to shove, as it were, and he's in front of a true hottie, he'll have that social dynamic worked down, and he'll have spent some time getting better at, frankly, doing some chick whispering, figuring out what's going on inside those noggins of those women out there, and figuring out how to be the kind of man women want, all right?
Yeah,
right?
So that would be the first answer. Since he is not in an area with many women, he is going to have to be very careful about his own reputation as well as reputation of the girls he's with. He does have an advantage, and that is if he can prove that he can protect the reputations of the women he's with, he could become the one guy in the area that ends up experiencing the majority of those women because they know he's not going to hurt their reps. In the meanwhile, if sarging prettier girls is really his main focus and his goal, focus on internet dating. Because with internet dating, you can talk to women around the world and you can start setting up conversations with women on the phone who live in the bigger towns close enough that he could travel to.
Yeah, right.
And that would be what I would suggest. But in the meanwhile, he needs to date the girls in his area, so he actually has the experience of going out on a date. He has the experience of what it's like to hold a girl's hand. He has the experience of kissing a girl. He has the experience of actually leading a relationship. If you wait for the perfect girl to come into your life, the fact is all the mistakes you're going to make in any relationship, since you're going to be new to it, you don't want to make them with the girl that you want to stay with forever. You want to make them with the girls that you're going to date as part of a process to learn about yourself.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. You've made two massive points there, and I don't want to let them just go under the bridge. First of all, you're talking about protecting the reputation of the women you're with. I mean, women don't want to be made into sluts by virtue of you blabbermouthing all of your exploits with all these women. What you're talking about here, Frank, is so profound that it not only applies to a small town, but it pretty much applies to any small microcosmic social setting you can possibly be in.
Agreed.
This goes for a school setting, a university setting. If you go to a small college, guys, don't go bragging to your buddies what you're doing with all these women, because it's going to get around that you're not safe. And we've talked about this before. Women want a man who makes them feel safe. This isn't about you whacking thugs over the head who are trying to rape and pillage your women. This is about protecting their reputation. This is about making them feel as if they're safe in your presence. You're the guy that they need to be protected from most, and you're the guy who's also in control directly over whether they feel protected or not. That's the first thing, right?
Agreed.
Second of all, you're talking about this whole concept of practice and online dating. David D'Angelo, I think, was the first guy to talk about using the internet as woman practice. That's kind of cold because, you can meet some really great women online. And, of course, I was going to play the online dating card, too, for a different reason. But I love what you said here, Brother Kermit, because you're talking about a guy being able to get in touch with women he wouldn't normally be able to get in touch with. Now, like the old Tube song says, you can't fall in love. She's a beauty, but don't fall in love. If you start getting into these long-distance internet relationships, we're going to get into a whole nother bird's nest that we've tried to untangle in previous shows, and we're not going to go into here. Guys, if you need help with that one, just email me, and I will give you an earful and an inbox full. But online dating, you must exhaust your online dating opportunities in your Western North Carolina town, and I would say your 25 to 30 mile radius. Because, man, like cockroaches, when you flip on the switch in the middle of the night in a crusty kitchen, you're going to see women come out of the woodwork. You're going to have more women than you guessed, no matter where you live, because of the magic of internet nowadays. So, yeah, leverage that, John. Big time stuff there. Go ahead, Frank. Continue.
The only thing I would want to add is to keep his options open. I follow a certain rule. I teach this to my clients and my students, and that is you don't have a relationship with a woman until after you've been having sex with them. So a lot of these ideas of long-distance relationships over the internet, you don't have relationships there. Those relationships don't exist because you haven't yet been intimate with someone. And until you are still free to see other people, and so is the woman.
Yeah, I mean, I have these people who will email me. I'm sure you get the same ones, Frank. They're in this long-distance internet relationship. They're in love. This is the woman of their dreams. And they haven't even met yet. And furthermore, they're not even planning to meet for another 3 or 4 months. You know what that says to me? Fantasyland. They're afraid of breaking the fantasy. This is what we call the dreamscape effect. Guys, the more you are inventing a woman who doesn't exist, and that's exactly what's going on here, guys. You're inventing a woman who doesn't exist. The more that goes on, the more you're likely, now I use the word likely here, we'll talk about likelihood, the more you're likely to be disappointed when you meet this woman. Why is that? Because all you have are phone conversations, pictures, you may even have webcam for all I know, right? This woman is going to be different in some way, shape, or form when you actually meet her. She may smell funny. She may take her clothes off and have hair in places you didn't want hair, or some strange birthmark or something. Guys, you have no idea who this woman's going to be. She could have mannerisms that annoy the living tofu out of you. And you had no idea until you got this person in front of you. And how are you going to feel? You're going to have to literally go through a grieving process. Like a 5-step grieving process, because the woman you've invented in your head doesn't exist. And when you meet this woman, you're going to want to meet the woman you've been waiting to meet. And guys, It's going to be like she's dead. It's going to be like she has left, and you're never going to have a chance to meet her. It just plays tricks on your brain, guys. So don't even get into these long-distance relationships with women, especially if you're out in the middle of nowhere. Now, that said, I'm going to recommend a dating site for you, John, and it's farmersonly.com. Run by a friend of mine. It specializes in helping people in rural areas get together and try to stay as close to where you live as possible. I would say, man, don't make it any more than an hour, hour and a half drive, like that 100-mile radius you were talking about. But I know that particular site does really good work. Jerry Miller also appeared on Online Dating Domination and talked about niche dating sites, and that's worth checking out. Now, what about the social network, Frank? I know you actually run the Toronto layer, so I'm sure you have something to say about this.
Well, there's two things I want to say. There's a difference between a layer, which is guys who are coming together to study the seduction of women, there to help each other out, to go out and meet women and encourage each other, and building a social circle. Let's be very clear. The guys who you study seduction with are never to become your social circle. There's a reason for that. Guys who all get together to try and figure out the idea of relationships usually are damaged in some way. They're deficient in some way. That's why they seek out a layer to begin with. You don't want to build your social circle with a number of dysfunctional people. For some guys who join a layer, they are so dysfunctional that the layer that itself becomes a social circle, and it's the beginning of the end of any real relationship-forming abilities that you could develop. So if you're going to go out there and you want to meet a guy to study seduction material with, quiz seduction material with, and maybe go out together so that you encourage each other to approach, that's a good thing. But you have to remember that when you go out with a guy specifically to meet women, if one of you meets a woman, you cannot depend on that guy to give you a lift home. You need to arrive separately. You need to leave separately so that you both have the maximum opportunity to meet somebody and focus on a potential relationship, whatever that relationship may be, anything from a one-night stand to an ongoing long-term relationship.
Yeah, well, so much for bros coming first, huh?
Well, you know what? Bros do come first in the sense that if one of your guys is in trouble, you get a phone call. Listen, man, I was supposed to meet a girl here and she just stood me up. I'm really freaking out. I need someone to talk to. At that point, you be there for him as a friend. So in that sense, bros do come first. However, when two guys are going out to meet women, I mean, the end result is that in about, let's say 3 to 5 years, you hopefully will meet a woman that you're going to want to build your life with. And you can't do that when you keep putting some other guy who's dysfunctional ahead of that particular plan.
Understood.
And the idea of developing a social circle, if there's no social circle in your area, it's up to you to start one. Pick a particular interest of yours that will have a social angle where you can involve women. For example, you may not necessarily be a great dancer. So if you want to learn how to dance, why not make the arrangements to actually start a weekly dance club? You invite a couple of guys, you invite a couple of girls, you get one dance instructor, or you all watch a video on how to do the waltz, and you lead that social circle. You can start an online group with the same reason, using one of the free ones out there like MSN, Yahoo, whatever's out there, Google even. You start your own social circles. A good idea is that if there's no speed dating events in your area, contact companies who do speed dating and see if they're willing to set something up in your town. If they're not, see if you can arrange for you to set something up with their network. And if not, you set it up yourself. Take an ad out in the paper, trying to start a one-time speed dating event, and just get guys and girls to sign up. And once you have enough, and you have, let's say, 10 or 20 different guys and girls, and you host the speed dating event. One of the lessons for all men is that you must be your own leaders. And if there's no social circle or social event happening in your life, you have to create it. The last bit of advice I'm going to give, John, is that pick one night a week, let's say Thursday night. That's your social circle night. Every Thursday night, you have to pick something to do that's inexpensive. Anything from going out to a movie, to mini golf, to going to the latest cafe that's just opened up, to just going someplace with a telescope in the park and do some stargazing, whatever you want to call it. And what you do is that you invite every single person you know to that event that you've set up. And it doesn't have to be expensive. In fact, the cheaper it is, the better. If you do this on a weekly basis, by the 8th week, you're going to have people contacting you, asking, hey, John, What have you got planned this week? Whatever it is, count me in. Each person, because you are now the point person in this whole social context, is going to start bringing their friends. And now you're going to get introduced directly through a friend to any woman you want to meet within that group. As, oh, this is John. He's the guy that does these things every single week. He's the social butterfly here. He's the point man. Mm-hmm. Eventually, these people who you're always inviting out will start inviting you out to events. And that's how you start a social life.
Be the party.
Exactly.
You are the man with the social proof. You're the guy who's the MC. You're the guy who coordinated the whole thing. And as ironic as it sounds, Frank, when you're the guy in a small town with nothing to do, who becomes the guy with the plan for something to do, every town has somebody in it, and everybody's looking for something to do. And you're going to get maximum participation from people in terms of building a social circle like that when you're the guy who takes the bull by the horns. I think everything you said is absolutely so spot on. It's just amazing. Fantastic, fantastic words. Now, you know what, Frank? We're going to give a copy of your very own The Best Frank Advice for the Art of Relationship Management, Book 1, an entire ebook from Frank B. Kermit himself to you, John, for being so kind as to leave us a voicemail. How's that? And if you want to leave us a voicemail, we have 2 very simple rules. You ready for them? Here they are. First of all, ask a question that we can have our co-host address here on the Chick Whisperer program. Second of all, give us your contact information. Give us your email address so that we can send your prize to you. And if you want to leave us one of those voicemails, here's the magic number. That number can be called anytime from anywhere, 24/7, 365 and a third days a year. And that number is area code 210 +1 if you're outside the United States or Canada. And that is 210-362-4400. Once again, 210-362-4400. That phone will never be answered. It's strictly for voicemail. And now, Frank, you know what? It's time to get to the meat of what we were going to talk about tonight.
Let's do it.
Well, I tell you what, speaking of your virtuosity episode, I think you're the perfect guy to talk about different stages of relationships and having complete control over the kind of relationships you're in with women, for the simple reason that you and I think, are 2 of very few. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head actively participating in seduction community kind of stuff, dating and seduction advice for men, who are actually married. Steve the Dean Williams is another one who comes to mind.
That's right.
And happily so. Now, you just recently got married about September of last year, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And you are well known for being a master seducer.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you have an interesting story about how you went from being a guy who really was very much into seduction community, into having as many women in his life as possible, to basically meeting this right woman. Now, there's going to be a lot of interesting conversation to follow, because you and I are both in very similar positions. A lot of times guys will ask me, well, how come you're doing this, Scott, and you're married? What does a married guy know about dating and seduction? Well, guys, let me be the first to tell you, the reason why I wasn't writing books and doing podcasts 3 or 4 years ago is because, man, when you start getting even mildly successful with women, this can take up your entire life. It can become like a heroin addiction. Going out with women all hours of the night when you should be at home getting ready for a big business meeting the next day, it can really start to consume your life. And really, you can ask just about any guy who's got a lot of success with women. Man, you're out there with women too much to be sitting around talking about it. It's very, very true. So not only till my life had come full circle and I had dated lots of women and learned how to have a wildly successful dating life and manage it, was I able to sit down, having met Emily, and decided to spend the rest of my life with her, that I even had the luxury afforded to me to even talk about this sort of thing. And I know you can relate a little bit, can't you, Frank?
I can relate to that. What I do want to say is that I started writing my books before I met Jade. So I already had 2 books out when Jade and I met, and it's just been an ongoing process from there. In meeting Jade, because I've always known that I want to get married. It was just a matter of finding the woman that met all of the criteria that I had set out. And there is a definite movement out there against the idea of men who are good with women to settle down.
Sure.
And that's because being the husband has a very negative stereotype. Husbands are seen in one of two ways. The whipped chump.
Oh, yeah.
The guy who's just a really good provider and has no control over his own life and says yes, dear, and has lost a lot of his living spirit for being married.
Sure.
And the other stereotype, although it's a sort of a positive one, is as a mentor and teacher to his children. The problem is, in both cases, he's not seen as a sexual being. It is the hero archetype who never has a woman, who is in the process of possibly getting a woman, or maybe getting many women with every single adventure. And that's what people are living for. They're living for that fantasy. And I don't personally think it exists, because long term, eventually, every hero either ends up incredibly alone if he doesn't find someone that he wants to build his life with, or he eventually settles down, but by that time, maybe he's settling down with someone that he wouldn't rather be with. He's just trying to avoid being alone, because the really quality women that he could have been with, he's walked away from in order to, be faithful to a lifestyle which will eventually betray him.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you talk to people who are heavily into the pickup lifestyle. It's like to become married is to literally have your balls cut off and sacrificed on the altar of what the chick wanted. And I think there's a radically different call to action that needs to occur with most guys, including the guys who are listening to this particular podcast. And that's to have complete control over your dating life, be the man, and make high-quality, educated decisions from a position of strength rather than weakness. Now, what do I mean by all of those fancy words? Nothing more than not letting one-itis get a hold on you at the beginning. You meet one girl and you go, oh my goodness, this is the girl that I love because she actually showed an interest in me. You know what I mean? Or that this is finally a reasonably pretty girl in my life and it's flukish, it's never going to happen again. I might as well marry this one because I'm never going to get so quote-unquote lucky. And it comes from this position of a poverty mentality where a guy feels like the woman is the prize and she's giving it up, and he's quote-unquote getting lucky. And see, guys, you were born to be the man. You were born to be in charge. You were born to be the one who sets the parameters and manages a relationship. Now, what does this mean? This means you have to make wise, educated decisions. Sure, you go out and date as many women as you can when that's what you really want out of life, from a position of strength. Why? So you can figure out what it is you want from a woman. Now, that said, I am not going to discount that there's guys out there who want to spend their whole life into their 70s and 80s dating and being with as many women as possible. That is a valid lifestyle if it's what you wanted. A lot of guys, and I get these emails all the time, I'm sure you do too, Frank. It's the second time we've said that on this show. But, there's such a pattern to this. They get into the seduction community, take pickup artist training as 25-year-old virgins, and they come 3 years later having spent thousands of dollars for boot camps. And what are they? They're 28-year-old virgins. They didn't want to be pickup artists. They just wanted a girlfriend. And you know what? That's okay also. It's like I'll get even more emails, and they're from guys saying, oh man, I have this girl and I really like her, and I'm thinking I want to settle down and make babies with her and this, that, and the other, so I should break up with her, right? I feel like reaching through the computer and slapping somebody. Let's get this straight. You've met a woman you really like. You want to spend a lot of time with her to the exclusion of other women, and you're going to break up with her? What are these guys thinking, Frank?
Okay, well, let's be clear here.
Yes.
What these guys are doing is that they're taking tactics of attraction.
Yes.
And they're trying to use them in relationship management. That's why it doesn't work.
Nope.
The tactics themselves are not good or bad. The tactics will work in the right context. Now, if it's a girl you've just met, maybe it's a girl you haven't slept with yet. That type of tactic might work. If you pull it off correctly in the right context with the right type of girl, it'll definitely work.
Now you're talking about what would be taught in pickup.
What's being taught in pickup is the idea of get her really attracted to you in the shortest amount of time possible,
right,
without considering the long-term consequences of your actions. What's taught in relationship management, which is what I like to specialize in, is how not just to create attraction, but how to create a lasting attraction so that when the bad times hit, she's still around. So that when you actually decide, oh my God, it turns out I really do want to be with this girl longer term, the foundation that you would have set up already through your new attraction tactics are things you can still utilize and build on to keep the relationship going.
Yeah, you've actually built for yourself the opportunity to have the kind of options we're talking about.
That's right. This is why when it comes to a lot of these attraction tactics, one of the ways to decide whether or not it's actually going to be something that you should or should not do is to look at the possibility of whether or not this is the girl that you want to spend more time with after the fact. And if there's even the remote chance that you want to spend time with her after the fact, you need to go into relationship management mode, not just temporary attraction mode.
And see, once you have the skill set involved with being able to, yes, approach and meet a woman without falling flat on your face, because that's important. No one's discounting that that's important. All we're saying is there has to be more to it than that. You can be a master seducer. I know you are, Frank, and I like to think I got skills in that area too. But what happens is, in my mind, Frank, if a woman's worth sleeping with once, she's worth sleeping with again and again for as long as I choose to sleep with her. Which means I have to have the ability to ride herd on that relationship, make decisions, and be a leader in that relationship so the woman will follow. And that's what's forgotten so much. The other thing that's forgotten so much is that guys have to look at a big picture scenario. If you become a man whore, you're going to have to either hide it very well from a high-quality woman who will not settle for that history in your life, or you're going to have to think up front, okay, what is my main goal here? I don't want to get married to a clubber party girl who will cuckold me and cheat on me and have no character. So in the context of deserving what a guy wants, he's got to say, okay, look, my goal someday is to have the right relationship with the best woman I've ever met. And that greatest woman he's ever met is going to be at every level. Sure, she's going to be the hottie of his life, right? She's going to be feminine. She's going to be a woman of high character. She's going to be a solid mother if he chooses to have children with her. I mean, a lot of guys say, yeah, you know what? Maybe someday I would like to have a son. Maybe one of each. You know, a son and a daughter. Leave a legacy. Even Neil Strauss, in the book The Game, talks about, please God, don't let me die without being a parent. After, previously saying, hey, God, don't let me die without having sex. Why? In Neil Strauss's own words, that's why we're here. Guys, you got to plan for things like wanting to have a legacy, even while you're learning your skills today in terms of how to meet women, how to meet the right women, and how to make solid decisions so that you have control even as the days, weeks, months, and years progress in your ability to pick up and maintain relationships with women.
I would just like to add to those statements. One of the categories of guys who eventually contacts me for help is a guy who will say something like, I never want to get married, I never want to be in a relationship, I just want to go out and pick up and just, have
right.
short-term flings. The guys who will say this the most are the guys who have the least amount of relationship experience. Either they're virgins or they've never even had a girlfriend. And my response to them is, until you've actually experienced being in relationships with women, you have no business saying that you would never want to have a long-term relationship. Mm-hmm. You just don't have the experience to back it up.
Plus, especially when we're younger, we change. Frank, I knew for a fact I didn't really feel all that excited about being a parent until my daughter was born in 1999. I was 33 years old, and I still wasn't so convinced I wanted to be a parent. But I've never looked back. And, now at age 41, my son has been born, and I couldn't be happier. Mm-hmm. See, the thing is, none of this has happened in spite of my wishes. All of this happened because I had a plan. Now, you may say, well, the first pregnancy you didn't know about, right? But it was definitely a planned pregnancy because I knew that, as crazy as it sounded, I was going to be into being a parent, and I went for it. I made that decision with my wife at the time. Now, if you're going around young, dumb, and full of cum, and you make some chick pregnant because you're irresponsible, and all of a sudden you've got decisions to make that you didn't feel like making, you don't have control over your dating life. If all of a sudden a woman, women have radar sensors that will outpull anything a guy will ever come up with, right? When a woman figures out that you don't want to lose her, that you want the relationship more than she does, she will pressure you into a long-term relationship, a long-term monogamous relationship that you may not be ready for. And guys will succumb to that pressure and end up married, long-term relationship we're talking here, to women they didn't even choose in many cases. And we've talked about that on this show before. That is the diametric opposite of what Frank and I are telling you guys about right here. You've got to be a man who knows relationship management to the point where you can make your decisions. Now, how do you do this, Scott? How do you do it? Well, the first thing you do is you've got to have a mindset long-term, like we're talking about. You've got to understand that every decision that you make has long-term ramifications. So if it's a different woman every night right now, you better be protecting yourself and your reputation, and make sure you don't get in a position where a woman's calling the shots because of a pregnancy or because you're overdrawn emotionally in a situation. That's the best advice I can give you guys. Second, when you date a lot of women, you're taking inventory on what it is you like and don't like about these women and tailoring your decisions in future relationships accordingly. You know what I'm talking about, Frank?
Mm-hmm. I would like to add that in my personal philosophy, and one of the things I teach men, is that the topic of birth control is the man's job. You never leave birth control up to the woman, because if she, for whatever reason, decides that she wants to be pregnant, she can get herself pregnant. It doesn't even have to involve you. She can go ahead and get pregnant by someone else and claim that it's yours.
Yep.
If you are a man, birth control is your responsibility.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I'm friends with another guy named Harry Crouch who's been on the Doc Love show before and is on Virtuosity. And he's a professional men's rights advocate. And one of his soapboxes, Frank, is exactly what you said. Men actually have less quote-unquote choice when it comes to birth control than women do, because women can do things like claim you're the father.
That's right.
And that doesn't even involve any action on your part. So yeah, guys, I couldn't agree with Frank any more on this subject. You got to absolutely watch your own back when it comes to birth control. You're the man, you're the one who makes the shots. This is relationship management at its finest. Frank, we're running out of time, but I don't think that this conversation would be complete without breaking down the kind of relationships that a guy can foresee himself having. Obviously, there's the one-night stand, right? That's at the baseline. And then you've got a long-term monogamous marriage. But there's other choices that guys can make in between. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, as it were, right?
That's correct. Let's start here with various categories of women in your life. When you start thinking of women in terms of the categories and the roles they play in your life, you can start feeling out exactly what type of relationship would best serve you. The first category is the women who are untouchable. You cannot have sex with them. These might include women you're related to, women you work with, whatever your particular rules are. Women who would be illegal for you to have sex with. So that's category number one. Category number two are your off-limits women. These are women that you could potentially have sex with, but you choose not to. They may be married to one of your friends. So you might have a particular rule that says, okay, I'm never going to have sex with one of my friends' wives.
Or she could be married to a guy with a huge gun collection.
Well, even that, it may be worth the risk. There's still a thrill there. But that's an individual choice.
That's the way to go out, right?
Yeah, if we're going to go, we should go with a smile.
Go out with a bang, and then another bang.
Yeah.
Right on.
The next category would be a bed buddy. This is a woman who you get with on a semi-regular basis. You have sex with her, very good for practice. These are just practice relationships. But there's no commitment. There is no relationship. It's just a matter of, also known as the booty call. Someone gives you a call and says, hey, you feel like getting together tonight or tomorrow night? So you basically have a date, you have sex, but there's no commitment, and you really don't talk beyond the communication necessary for the booty call.
Not to be confused with a friend with benefits.
Friends with benefit, I still feel, is a form of booty call where you are friends. Mm-hmm. You do have a certain friendship there. There is sex involved, but it's still not any form of relationship. A friends with benefit for me is equivalent to a bed buddy, simply because you have sex as part of your friendship, but it doesn't develop into something more meaningful where you start taking that person into your other areas of your life. The next step up would be a harem girlfriend. This is a girl who you actually start thinking of in terms of having a relationship. When you have decisions to make about your own life, you start thinking about her in those terms, but she isn't the number one girl in your harem. So as a harem girlfriend, she may have certain privileges that your friends with benefits would not have. For example, when you're going to a wedding and you want to bring a date, you wouldn't necessarily bring a friend with benefits because you don't want to communicate to anybody else that you're having relations with this particular girl. Again, you want to protect everyone's reputation involved. However, a harem girlfriend is a girl that you're seeing, but you're just not exclusive. At that point, you might bring a girl like that as your date to a wedding because you don't mind saying to the world, yes, I am dating this woman. We're not in a committed long-term relationship. She's not my fiancée. She's not my wife, but she is somebody that I am seeing, and I don't mind pointing it out to other people to know.
Now, one differentiation you would make with the word harem from how I would make it is I would say that if you have a harem of girlfriends, the women in this harem of girlfriends, in order to be classified as a harem by me, would be all faithful to the one guy.
That is usually something that I think works long-term. That is a very common definition, and what I subscribe to is that when I have a harem of that nature, although it is my preference for them to be faithful to me, I do allow them some freedoms to date other people, and the irony is the more I push these women to date other guys, they'll go out, date maybe one other guy, have sex with one other guy, come back to me and say, well, I had sex with that one other guy just to test me. And when I turn around and say, well, did you use protection? Because if you didn't, I can't be with you anymore. And the more I say, well, that's great, go ahead, be with him more. But now that you're dating someone else at the same time, you've moved down the hierarchy of my harem.
Well, I've always found that if you're honest with women up front, which of course everybody who's worth his salt in this business advocates, and you tell women that you are going to choose to date other women and that you're not going to be in a monogamous long-term relationship till you make that decision, you'll all of a sudden get women, provided that you're this masculine guy who ignites their femininity, like we talk about all the time around here. You will have women literally drop everything and compete to be the woman who wins you to the exclusion of other guys. Repeatedly, I've seen this happen. Even when you have been completely upfront with them that you are not making plans to have a monogamous relationship. Women will just get into this mindset where they are going to win you. And as long as everybody knows what's up front, that's what ends up happening. And it's almost like, well, either you're going to not date these women at once, or this is the way things are going to be. And you can give these women freedom to date as many other guys as you want. And like you said, Frank, it's amazing how the more you push them towards dating other guys, the more they just want to be with you and only you.
That's right.
It's amazing. Anyway, continue. What's the next stage?
The next stage from a harem girlfriend would be a harem primary. This is your harem queen. She is the one that, let's say we use the example of the going to a friend's wedding. She is the one to get first dibs to go with you. She is the one who you will take into consideration over other women. She is the one that if you're going on a 2-week vacation, or let's say it's a work-related 3-day seminar that you're going to, and you're able to bring one partner with you, it is the harem primary that gets first dibs on that seat on the plane with you.
In my vernacular, in my way of thinking, that woman would be called the primary, but she would also be someone I am considering being exclusive with to the exclusion of these other women because she has such favoritism in my life.
Agreed.
Yeah, right. And so see, the ability to have strong, centered decisions and be in control of your own dating destiny here is the ability to see the concept of having multiple long-term relationships, which is what we're talking about here. They're not one-night stands. They're women you're seeing over and over for long or at least medium term. Not seeing that situation as evil because of social pressures, or seeing the concept of having one girlfriend as evil in the sense that you're cutting off your manhood, that you're, giving up the game, etc., etc. As a man who has an ability to make educated choices, you can look at both those situations as acceptable as long as you're the guy making the choice and you're doing what it is you want to be doing from a position of strength because you had options. You had 4 or 5 or 6 or, I don't know, 16, 20 women you were dating, right? One woman is starting to have a favorite role in your life over these other women. Now, you may not feel ready to resign having options 2, 3, 4, and 5 in your life when option 1 isn't there for you. And, I've been in that position myself. I've had a primary with lots of other women I've been dating. But at the very point where that one woman is the only one you really want to spend time with to the exclusion of all the others, then I think it's a valid and reasonable choice to make her an exclusive girlfriend, which I'm assuming is the next stage, right?
That's right, because the next thing after harem primary, or your harem queen, the next stage would be the girl that you want to be monogamous with. Now, this is not to say that monogamy is for everybody.
Sure.
There are guys out there who have the relationship experience to back it up that never want to end up being monogamous. At most, they would want a harem primary who they could enjoy other women with together.
That's right. Have an open relationship or find a bisexual girlfriend to have a circle relationship with, a circle of relationships.
That's right. So the ultimate end of all this, the ultimate would be to find a girl you want to be monogamous with. Why? Because once you're monogamous with somebody, that is the absolute highest echelon that you could ever have in a relationship with anybody. That does not mean that monogamy is for everybody. And if you have any doubt in your mind if you want to be monogamous or not, it means don't be monogamous.
I would agree with that. I hope that doesn't shock people out there, but I would agree with that. If you have any doubt in your mind whether you should be being monogamous with the woman you're with, you're not making choices from a decision of strength. Now, this is coming from the married guy. I am married to the greatest woman I've ever known, and that has been a field-tested premise. At the time I met Emily, I was dating 4 women, all of whom I could have been quote-unquote happy with for the rest of my life. I could have shut everything else out and said, well, you know what, I have the greatest woman in the room everywhere I go. Emily raised the bar above and beyond all 4 of those women. She made me forget the other 4. Now, one thing that I think must be added as a caveat to having one steady girlfriend is I wouldn't even think of having one monogamous steady girlfriend unless I'm considering the possibility of seeing what it would be like to spend the rest of my life with this woman. She's got to be at least marriage material, as it were, from a position of me making that decision to explore that before I'm even going to waste my time. And yeah, those are strong words, but I'm not going to waste my time with a woman I don't see myself being with long term because I want a steady girlfriend right now. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but see, guys, women are expecting you to be at least considering a long-term ultimate relationship if you're in a monogamous relationship with them like this. Otherwise, it's not fair to the woman. You're jerking with her heart. You really are. And it's not the right thing to do.
One of the things that I teach all my male students is that when a woman is with you, you must never stop her from meeting her potential soulmate.
Oh, man, that's so true.
So one of the reasons I advocate open relationships, from the time you start dating someone, you always assume it's going to be an open relationship until a public declaration is made to the contrary. The reason you do that is that every woman deserves to find her soulmate. And if you are not the soulmate of hers that's going to marry her or give her the type of long-term relationship that she might be seeking, she needs the freedom to be able to find that. She needs the freedom to be able to explore that option. The way I structure a relationship is to say, well, while you're looking for that great soulmate, you can still date me in the meanwhile. I'll never get in the way of that. And you know what? You're going to learn about yourself by dating me because I can teach you about you and I'm going to learn about myself too.
Yeah, that's right. 2 things I would add to that. First of all, no matter what woman you're seeing at whatever stage of relationship you're conducting with her, she should be the only woman in front of you at that time. No comparisons. Nothing like that. You enjoy the company of the woman you're with at any given moment. I think that's incredibly powerful. And the second part, and I'll give you the last word after I say this, Frank, is you never own anybody, even in the context of a long-term relationship. Even though Emily and I are married and we have a child together, one or the other of us has the freedom to walk. And it's that freedom that literally and ironically is the glue that holds us together. because there's no constraint. There's no force majeure on our relationship, as it were. We are there by choice, not by default. Take it, Frank. Take us home.
I would add to that within my philosophy that I don't commit to a person, but I'll commit to the relationship. Because there are going to be days when you don't get along with your primary partner. No matter how great she is, she's still not perfect. No matter how great I may be, I'm not perfect. There's going to be days you get on each other's nerves. And on those days, it's very simple for a human being who's really mad at their partner to stop being committed to their partner, even temporarily. One of the things I would advocate is to say, be committed to the relationship, not the person. Your commitment to an intangible ideal, like a relationship, is a lot stronger and will waver a lot less than your commitment to a person that is imperfect and is tangible.
Fair enough. My friend is Frank B. Kermit. Frank is the author now of 4 books, and you can go get all of those books from www.franktalks.com, FrankTalks.com. And Frank, you're hosting a live seminar for the very first time next month, aren't you?
Yeah, at the end of March, I'm doing an inner game seminar based on my inner game workbook. I'm a Man, That's My Job, The Philosophy of a Seducer. It's going to be intensive, 12 hours a day for 3 straight days. And my goal with this seminar is that whoever it is you walk in as is not going to be the person when you leave. I will be drilling guys. I will be a hard ass. I am going to force you to face some of your most deadliest demons. I don't guarantee a solution to some of your demons because I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a trained psychotherapist or anything of that nature. But I will at least give you some of the tools so that you can start to deal with some of the biggest blocks you may have. And that's my goal with this 3-day seminar at the end of March.
And guys, if they want to learn more about that, can go and check out your website also, right?
All the information's on the website. We have some guest speakers lined up, including Johnny Saporno. We have Cristiano Jr. We have a few other names in and around Toronto. Best thing to do, check the website. Michael the Dating Wizard, one of the most ethical guys I know in this field.
Well, our good friend here at the Chick Whisperer, who's been a guest here.
Yeah, he's going to be there. And I'm looking forward to this. We're going to be videotaping this. I'm hoping to put out a product of DVDs from this seminar. If all goes well, like I said, this is the first time I'm ever doing a seminar like this. And if you want to get an idea of some of the exercises we're going through, read the preview of I'm a Man, That's My Job. You can find it through my website. And everybody who's coming, if they already don't have a copy of my workbook, they're going to get a copy of my workbook. And we're going to be going through that and getting a lot of our guest speakers to give their interpretations of my work. So it's going to be something new. It's going to be something that hasn't been done before within the world of dating. And I'm very excited about it. Within my layer, I do a lot of the exercises from my workbook with my layer. And it's been providing some incredible results. I'm seeing guys change on a weekly basis. And if I can do something this intensive and give guys the opportunity to finally put certain obstacles they have into a clear, concise manner so that they can move the obstacles out of the way and find their way to themselves, that's what this seminar is all about.
And, of course, Frank is one of our featured co-instructors, as we mentioned, on Virtuosity. You can go check that out at www.thechickwhisperer.com and give us your email address and your name. And when you land on the next page, which will tell you all about Virtuosity, you can not only find out about Frank Kermit and the other 44 co-instructors we have, you're going to be able to find out about all 6 different components of Virtuosity that we have for you, and I'm about to upload some videos that help you out with that. And when you get to that page, you're also going to find that you're able to download that secret bonus episode of The Chick Whisperer featuring none other than Brent, Mr. Indifference himself, Smith of Brent Smith Lifestyle. That was a special episode that we put together just for our newsletter listeners. Guys, get on iTunes and leave a review for us. We need some more of those. And next time on the Chick Whisperer Show, I'm going to have a very special announcement for you guys about something that is probably the most innovative and exciting project ever to come thus far from X and Y Communications. So look forward to that. My guest has been Frank B. Kermit. Frank, thanks a lot, man, for joining us. It's been an incredible conversation.
I really had a good time. Look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely. And this is Scott McKay from X and Y Communications. Until we talk at you next time, be good.
The Chick Whisperer podcast is copyright 2008 by the X and Y Communications Worldwide Media Casting Network. Be sure to sign up for the X and Y Communications newsletter at www.thechickwhisperer.com. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Chick Whisperer podcast.